Are you putting food into long-term storage to get your family prepared for emergencies, disasters, and even long-term grid-down SHTF type events? If you want that food to stay fresh and be ready years from now, you'll need to defeat the enemies of long-term food storage, starting with one of the worst, oxygen. In this video, we're going to look at exactly how to do that. My name is Les, and I want to welcome you to the Chef Prepper channel, where we make videos that are worth your time. I want to give you an analogy about your storage food and its long-term enemy, oxygen. Picture a campfire. The fire burns the wood, but only as long as the oxygen is available. Take away the oxygen, no more fire. Your long-term storage food is like the wood, and oxygen slowly burns it chemically over time. Not into flames, but into spoilage, rancidity, and loss of nutrition. So the goal is the same: remove the oxygen and remove the fire of spoilage. Now let's look at some practical ways to put that oxygen fire out. There are 5 ways to deal with oxygen when it comes to long-term storage foods. Number 1 is to do nothing. Leave your food in its original packaging. That will lead you quickly to failure. Number 2 is to repackage your food in less permeable containers than the original packaging. Plastic is still permeable, but not nearly as much so as original packaging. You're still going to have that oxygen fire burning. Or if you put your food in a non-permeable container, like glass, either way, if you do it without taking care of the oxygen, your food becomes kind of like a de facto oxygen absorber. Now, it's not really going to absorb the oxygen, but it is going to chemically react with it. This is better than this, but it's still not there. Number 3 is to buy foods that are already pre-packaged to overcome the oxygen problem, like canned foods. And with these type foods, dealing with the oxygen has already been done for us. We just merely put this type of food into storage. That is proper storage. And the last 2 ways of dealing with oxygen in your long-term storage foods: vacuum sealing and oxygen absorbers. How do they compare, and which one should you use? Let's consider the air that we breathe. It's 21% oxygen. The rest is mostly nitrogen. It doesn't cause oxidation or spoilage. It actually helps your food once the oxygen is removed from the air. So the biggest difference between oxygen absorbers and vacuum sealing: the absorbers remove oxygen, not the air. So after they've done their job of removing the oxygen, the air that's left is almost 99% nitrogen and kind of protective of your food, and is similar to, but not as strong as, what commercial food packers do who use nitrogen packaging. Vacuum sealers, on the other hand, remove the air, not just the oxygen, but all of it. However, it doesn't completely remove all of the air. It doesn't make a perfect vacuum, so there's still a small amount of air and oxygen left. And there's enough oxygen left that, given the same storage conditions other than using the absorbers or the vacuum sealing, it will make a difference. The food using the oxygen absorbers will have a longer shelf life. I'm not telling you you shouldn't use vacuum sealing. I use it myself for a lot of different types of foods. There are some foods that it's appropriate for, and it works very well. Just not as good for some foods as the oxygen absorbers. Using oxygen absorbers is very simple. Number 1, make sure the food is appropriate to be stored with oxygen absorbers, like white rice, dry beans, dry grains, and so forth. There are some foods that should not be stored with oxygen absorbers. Foods that still have some moisture content in them, or that might be oxygen sensitive foods, like salt, sugar. These could cause those to make one giant clump. If you're wanting a more inclusive list of foods that shouldn't be used with oxygen absorbers, I will be putting a much more extensive list of those type foods in an upcoming copy of my new newsletter that I call Getting Ready. If you haven't registered or subscribed to receive that newsletter, I have a couple of free PDFs that you'll see in this video. There's links to those down in the description box. If you download one of those PDFs, that will get you registered to receive the newsletter. And for some reason you don't like the newsletter, you can always unsubscribe. So number 2, after you make sure the food's appropriate for oxygen absorbers, you have a clean container. And if you're going to be using Mylar, you're going to need another container to put the Mylar into. Most of us use plastic buckets. Number 4, put the food into the container, the jar, or the Mylar bag once the Mylar bag is in the bucket. Number 5, put the oxygen absorber in. Fill the container the rest of the way up with the food, in this case rice. Packing it down as you go. Put the lid on if it's a jar. And after a couple of days, make sure that it's sealed. How do you make sure it's sealed? This jar isn't sealed yet. I just put the oxygen absorber in. But in a couple of days, the lid should not come off easily. If you're using a Mylar bag, after you put the food in, put your appropriately sized oxygen absorbers in, fill it the rest of the way up. Then you use a heat sealer to seal the bag. And after a day or so, it will look something like this. Sometimes it will be smoother. I don't know why that is. It just is. But remember, the purpose of the oxygen absorbers is not to remove all the air, it's to remove the oxygen. You can also reuse plastic containers with the oxygen absorbers. However, you need to keep in mind, plastic is somewhat permeable, meaning slowly over time, oxygen will still seep into your food. Using oxygen absorbers in plastic will keep your food good much longer than not using oxygen absorbers. But the shelf life in plastic with the oxygen absorbers will not be as long as the shelf life of the glass or if you use Mylar bag. Using a vacuum sealer is also very easy. Number 1, make sure that the food is appropriate to be stored by vacuum packing. And yes, there are foods that should not be vacuum packed, such as foods that are still moist or foods that are oily. And again, for a more extensive list of foods that should not be vacuum packed, I'll put that list along with the foods that shouldn't be used with oxygen absorbers in an upcoming newsletter. Number 2, have a clean container ready to put the food in, mason jar, or vacuum packing bags. Number 3, put the food in the container. Number 4, seal the containers with the vacuum sealer. These are dry beans that we grew here on our homestead. They would be better packaged in Mylar or in a glass container because the plastic will over time let oxygen slowly get to the beans. I didn't realize that when I packaged them. So in the future, when I package dry beans, I'll vacuum seal them in a jar, or I grow foods in bulk. I'll probably package them in Mylar bags in plastic buckets. But this will work, not as long as this or Mylar. And if you vacuum seal foods for long-term storage in plastic vacuum sealer bags, they will need to be put in another container in order to help you overcome some of the other enemies of long-term food storage. In summary, the 5 ways to deal with one enemy of food storage, oxygen. Number 1, if you leave your food in the original packaging, you're asking for failure. Number 2, repackaging without oxygen absorbers is better than option number 1, but you can do much better. Number 3, canned food. The oxygen battle is already fought and won when you get the food. Number 4, vacuum sealing works great, but it's not the best way to deal with oxygen. Number 5, and the best way to deal with one of the worst enemies of long-term food storage is to use oxygen absorbers in glass or Mylar. After you've packaged your food with your method of choice, you still need to properly store your properly packaged food. I'll say that again. You still need to properly store your properly packaged food. So that means there's more to consider to ensure the longest possible shelf life for your long-term storage foods. And that is why I created this food storage guide. It's a free PDF. It will help you tremendously when it comes to getting the longest possible shelf life for your long-term storage foods. I also have this free canned food storage guide. It too is linked down in the description box. It's free, So if you click on either of the links, you'll get that PDF and you'll be registered to receive the newsletter. And better still, get both of the PDFs. More than likely, you're going to store rice, beans, and canned food. So you might as well get the longest shelf life possible. So if you got any value out of this video, I want to ask you to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, hit the notification bell, share the video. I know that you know a lot of people who are probably putting up food, but they may not be doing it in the best way possible to get the longest shelf life possible. Maybe they'll benefit from this video. And I will see you in the next video.